We're all waiting for Shohei Ohtani to make his decision. But beyond Ohtani, there's still some free agents available and some that could work for the Dodgers. We'll look at three candidates today and see if they fit for the Dodgers. So that's what's coming up. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become one of our favorite listeners, those are called the everydayers. All you have to do is listen or watch every day, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on audio podcast platforms, or whether on both, if you really want to be, super into it. We can be found at all those places. If this is your first time listening watching, I'm Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host Jeff Snider, and we are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team in different capacities. One of those capacities being a Dodger podcast. We've done that for a while now, and we've done other things, writing about the Dodgers, covering the Dodgers, press box, locker room, Camelback Ranch. We've done it all. And we're here to just bring you what we think is smart and knowledgeable, and hopefully some different thoughts and takes about the Dodgers than maybe you might have, or maybe the same thoughts, and that's why you like us. Either way, we're here to have you listen about the Dodgers about 30 minutes every Monday through Friday. That's what we're going to do today. It was another quiet day, at least in the Dodgers world. I feel like since this is the first offseason with Twitter and the new verified and check marks and all that it's again it's a feast out there for people wanting attention right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's used to be that a blue check mark meant something. You could, avoid finding a fake Ken Rosenthal account by just looking for the blue check mark. That doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore. And so that's why you should follow the accounts that you trust. And then you can actually click on it and see, oh, is this the one that I follow? That's the easiest way. And really just follow Jeff Passan. All the important news is going to come through him at some point anyway. So
yeah, I have subscriptions set up for all the main beat writers, and that way if I'll get notified no matter what when something goes down. Even if they don't actually break the news, they'll be the second to the news, if anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of those kind of in that realm. Everyone has sources on Ohtani, even though realistically nobody has sources on Ohtani. And they've been saying that he's down to the Cubs and the Blue Jays and the Dodgers, and that the Giants are in, and blah, blah, blah. We don't know. We're probably not going to know until he actually signs, and that's fine with me. But there are other free agents available, and we're going to talk about three of them today. The first one being Jeimer Candelario, who can play both corner infield spots, first and third base. He played for the Nationals last year, hit very well, then was traded to the Cubs at the deadline. Hit not as well there, but still pretty well, and is now a free agent. He is just turned 30 years old, and MLB Trade Rumors has him projected at 4 years, 70 mil. So knowing all that, Jeff, do we think this guy can fit on the Dodgers?
Yeah, it kind of like what we were talking about the other day with Alex Bregman. Obviously, Jeimer Candelario isn't quite at Alex Bregman's level, but he might be a guy who only fits if the Dodgers whiff on Ohtani, because they just signed Max Muncy to an extension, and Max Muncy is currently their third baseman. With Jason Hayward coming back, there's probably not a place at second base for Max Muncy. Even if Gavin Lux does hold down shortstop, Max Muncy is the third baseman unless the DH spot is open. And so Jeimer Candelario probably only makes sense if the DH spot is open. But if the DH spot is open, I don't hate the idea. He is a solid hitter. He's kind of under the radar. And he hasn't been a good hitter his whole career, but basically starting in 2020, he has been, he had a 137 OPS plus in 2020, 121 in 2021, down to 81 OPS plus in 2022, and then 119 this last year. So 3 of the last 4 years, he's been, 20% better than league average or better. That one down year is a little concerning, but it's his last year in Detroit. Maybe it's probably hard to play in Detroit sometimes when the team's no good. But and I assume he was hurt. He only played 124 games, so I assume he had injury issues. Maybe that affected it. But the last couple of years, he's been a pretty darn good hitter. And I'm not convinced that he is a better hitter than Max Muncy. And so I don't think that he's a guy you just replace Muncy with. And defensively, he's probably a better defensive third baseman than Muncy, but he's not a Gold Glover over there either. So, all in all, I think Candelario would be a decent consolation prize if they couldn't get Ohtani. That they better get a lot of pitchers if they don't get Ohtani. Got all this money of mine to spend, but I like Candelario as a ball player. Overall, I don't think he's likely to come to the Dodgers just because a lot of things would have to go wrong for them to turn to him. And I think there's other teams that probably need him more and therefore value him more highly.
Yeah, and if he could play one more position, it would open him up, easy. The corners at this point are taken for the next couple years. And like you said, it's a contingency plan if Ohtani doesn't come, where he makes more sense. He would be a great bench piece, but that'd be a very expensive bench piece considering what he's expected to get. And he was a $5 million guy last year and turned himself, might make himself 30-40 mil after that. So, or even more. So he's a switch hitter. He hits not really any hard splits. He hits pretty well from both sides. Hits pretty well overall. He makes sense in the scheme of, like you said, they don't get Ohtani, and considering what's available on the free agent market. Like I talked about Matt Chapman, and he's obviously going to cost a lot more. And realistically, you could get similar or better offensive production from Candelario for a lot cheaper. Where you lose out is on defense. But, the Dodgers have had Max Muncy at third base last 2 years and gotten by pretty well, where it hasn't, maybe cost them too much, maybe one ground ball down the line that maybe could have been stopped by a better defensive third baseman back in 2022 in the playoffs. But other than that, I mean, they've gotten by and done, hasn't hurt them necessarily. So, yeah, he makes sense if they don't get Ohtani, but yeah, I don't think other than that, he doesn't make sense at all because he plays two positions that are already taken.
Yeah, they'd basically just be throwing their money around and saying, hey, this guy that you guys need, we're going to sign him instead.
Yeah, and I guess the Dodgers have never really done this, but, if it'd have to be a shorter term deal, obviously not a 4-year deal. If they got him like a 2 or 3 year deal, signed him, and then for whatever the case, got somebody else or somebody emerged, like he's a guy you could flip kind of easily like the Nationals did last year. Dodgers have never really done that. Or even flip after the year. Like, let's just say they get him for the year and then they sign a big time hitter the next year that can play DH or third base or whatever. And then now you don't have a need for him anymore, so you can flip him at that time.
Yeah, it's a possibility, but yeah, like you said, they haven't done that, and it would be weird to see them trading. I mean, they do occasionally. They traded Ross Stripling at the trade deadline. They traded Mitch White at the trade deadline, so they do sometimes trade major leaguers, but not guys who they just signed to a 4-year contract.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is a pitcher that probably some people have on their list, especially considering that they like the way he pitches in October. That's Jordan Montgomery. So that's who's coming up. Let's make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. And right now, the one they got is pretty great. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. You put down $5. You say who's going to win that NFL game between whoever and whoever, and you if you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. That means $150 in your account to freely bet on other things. And FanDuel doesn't just have money line bets, they have spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Just last night, some people hit big on some DK Metcalf props, touchdown props, and some other player props of who's going to score a touchdown in the game. So there's a lot of ways to get in with FanDuel, and you don't have to wait. You can get in, become a new customer right now, put a $5 money line bet on any of the games on Sunday, and by Monday morning, you'll have $150 in bonus bets waiting for you. So go check out FanDuel right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon and start your NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. And if we're not your first listen of the day every day, we appreciate it if you tried it out or at least make us part of your listen at any point of the day. It's easiest to start us with your day, but you can fit us in wherever especially right now, we're not talking about games. The content is pretty evergreen unless someone we talk about actually signs with another team. So check us out whenever, fit us in whenever. I know that we've, and keep those Spotify wraps coming in. You guys have listened a lot of minutes to us talking, and we appreciate it as always. And, go check us out. So, all right, Jeff, Jordan Montgomery is also a free agent. We know him from, if you watch the postseason, he was on the World Series champion Rangers, and, he pitched pretty well for them in the postseason, pitched pretty well for them in the regular season. And he's a guy that, isn't a Cy Young contending ace, but he is a guy that can give you innings. He is a guy that can, do well. And is a guy has, at least this past year performed in the postseason. MLB Trade Rumors has him projected at 6 years, $150 million. Knowing all that, let's talk about Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, if you look at his career, he's another guy who's just kind of flown under the radar and been pretty darn good. He had 2 bad years with the Yankees, injury issues, 2019 and 2020. Between those 2 seasons, he was really bad. The rest of his career, he has been outstanding. He's been a starter his whole career, and just consistently puts up an ERA plus around, 15 to 25% better than league average almost every year. It just, like you said, he's not an ace. He has never gotten a single, even down ballot Cy Young vote. The only votes he's ever gotten in postseason awards was he finished 6th in the Rookie of the Year voting in 2017, behind Cody Bellinger, behind Aaron Judge, his teammate. He was in the American League. But other than that, he's just a unremarkable, consistent pitcher who, other than when he was injured in New York, he just steps up. He pitches, takes the ball pretty much every start. Like in the last 3 years, he has made 94 starts in the last 3 years. The Dodgers, I think Clayton Kershaw led the Dodgers in starts this last year with 21, 22, something like that. That sort of consistency, and it's not Lance Lynn consistency of, not 2023 Lance Lynn anyway, of, yeah, he'll take the ball and he will be lousy, but he'll keep you in a ball game or whatever. Like he's got a career 3.68 ERA, 3.75 FIP. So basically, right in line with his performance. And that's with the 2 bad seasons. Like the last 3 seasons, 3.48 or 3.83, 3.48, 3.20 ERAs. Like just, that's very, very good, especially with the Dodgers offense. Like if you come in and you put up a 3.20 ERA like he did last year for the Dodgers in 32 starts, you're going to win 24 games. Like that is very good. And, Montgomery, I do think there is that postseason luster, and I'm a little bit leery about that, especially because like he had a couple good games. He also had, some less good games. But overall, I mean, in his career, he's got a 2.63 ERA in the postseason, 37 and 2/3 innings. I do think that a small sample size, anybody can have good numbers. I don't think it's that much different. But the fact that he has pitched well in the postseason and he's pitched well in the regular season, That's two things the Dodgers are looking for. So he would look very good as somebody's third or fourth starter in Los Angeles.
Yeah, almost all those innings came this last postseason. So that's kind of where, the under the radar, and now that the fact that he's projected to make 150 mil comes a lot from what he did in the postseason. Like you said, it wasn't all great, but he came in at different spots. He came into a game. He started a few games. He was, able to do it, and the Rangers won the World Series. And for a guy like him, like you said, consistency, being able to go out and take the ball every fifth day. He doesn't have top tier stuff. He doesn't have the strikeouts. He, doesn't have the super whip. He's just a guy that goes out there and gets outs and is a serviceable guy. And for a number, for realistically, he's probably a number 3 starter in a full major league season. Maybe a number 2 if you have a really good offense. So, and the Dodgers are, should have a pretty good offense. So he's a guy that, if they sign him and he's the one big signing, they would need like another really good second tier guy to kind of supplement him. It wouldn't be like Jordan Montgomery and a guy like Michael Lorenzen. It'd be like Jordan Montgomery and then like somebody else in that. I guess Blake Snell's kind of in that tier, but maybe not Blake Snell, but somebody in that type of tier that's, a guy that's going to start a postseason game, basically, is what you're looking for. And, it makes sense for the Dodgers. He's not a top priority, obviously. They have, bigger fish to fry. Ohtani, even Blake Snell, Yamamoto, there's different guys. But if it gets down to it and they're in the mix for Montgomery, or they have, they miss out on some guys and they have some money to throw around, I think you do a lot worse than throwing it at Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, for sure. And if we're, the difference is he is what we're picturing his role in the Dodgers rotation is probably not the role that he is likely to get paid for. Like somebody is probably going to sign him to be closer to a number 2 starter for them. And obviously those are just numbers. Like there's not an actual definition of a number 2 starter or a number 4 starter or anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, what that means is that another team probably values him more highly than the Dodgers do. Based on their needs. Kind of like we were talking about with Candelario. There's probably other teams that need Jordan Montgomery more than the Dodgers do, especially because, like you said, the Dodgers are going after the bigger fish. And if they do, if they get Yamamoto and, one of these other lesser guys, like we talked about, Lugo or Giolito or something, at that point, like the Dodgers currently have 11 candidates for the starting pitching rotation without signing anybody. And so it's not so much a matter of need as far as numbers go, quantity. It's, you never know with young guys. There's some guys who you want to, they're going to want to start Landon Knack and Nick Frosso and them in AAA. So there's a lot of things, but they have candidates, but you really are looking for somebody who raises the bar for the team. And Montgomery, at what he's likely to get paid, I would guess probably doesn't move the needle for the Dodgers like he might for another team.
Yeah. And the thing with a guy like him is, if you can get him under 25 mil, that'd be obviously ideal, just for the, simple fact of you don't want to pay too much for a strong October. But for every pitcher or impact position player the Dodgers acquire, that opens up them for like trades. So like if you sign a Jordan Montgomery, that might open up Frosso or Knack or Stone or Pepio for a trade to get somebody else that either helps you offensively, or if you miss out on another pitcher, another pitcher that, Tyler Glasnow or somebody like that gives, even if it's a rental, you're able to open up some guys for it. So I think that's the other part of it with some of these second tier guys is if you sign them, obviously you still want the big kahuna, the big fish, if we're going to stay in the fish analogy, but you can sign one of these guys like Jordan Montgomery, and then you can open up some players to trade for the guy that's going to start game 1 of a playoff series.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning, since I'm sure I know that we usually have quite a few people watching these episodes on YouTube as they're premiering, and they're in the chat. I'm sure somebody is yelling at us right now in that chat that Jordan Montgomery is a Scott Boras client, and so that's worth noting. You know, the Dodgers can sign Boras clients; they have the capability. They don't very often. That's not because they can't; it's because, like we talked about before, players choose Scott Boras when they want to maximize how much money they're going to get on their contract. And the Dodgers usually don't pay those top dollar contracts except for the elite of the elite. And so I do think that's another reason that I think Jordan Montgomery is likely to get that, 150 million over 6 years or whatever the MLB Trade Rumors is projecting. And if he gets that contract, it's not going to be from the Dodgers.
Yeah. And I guess it depends how much they consider him in comparison to Nola. They did offer Nola 165 mil, and they're somewhat comparable in numbers, but obviously kind of different types of pitchers. But whatever. It we'll see what happens. Last one to talk about is a bullpen piece. We haven't really talked about too many. We talked about Josh Hader, and there isn't much behind that. But one of those behind that is Hector Neris, who we have fond memories of as Dodger fans for different reasons. But would he fit the Dodgers in the bullpen? So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching to Locked On Dodgers every day. And if you're already on YouTube, after you watch, you can check out Locked On's first ever, or not Locked On's ever, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today covers the top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Locked On Sports Today on YouTube is there for you. All you have to do is subscribe, and you can watch sports news all day on the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And you can also check out Locked On Sports Los Angeles. They have all the LA teams covered for you around the clock 24/7. All right, Jeff. So the last player we have here is a bullpen piece, and it's Hector Neris, and he was been on the Astros the last couple of years. We remember him for giving up all those home runs on the Phillies a while back, and he's turned himself into a pretty solid to very good reliever last 2 years in Houston, and now he's a free agent. MLB Trade Rumors has him projected at 2 years, 15 mil. He is 34 years old, so a little bit on the older side. And like I said, he's been very solid for the Astros last couple of years. Is this someone that could fit in the Dodgers bullpen?
Hector Neris scares me, partly because, as you mentioned, we've seen him in action with the Phillies. I know he was the pitcher for the Absolute Madness game when he gave up the 3 straight homers in the 9th inning. I feel like there was another big that rainy game in Philadelphia when he either intentionally or unintentionally threw at Dodgers hitters and all sorts of. I think there was drama that game about Matt Beatty accidentally kicking Rhys Hoskins or whoever's playing first base for the Phillies. Anyway, Hector Neris has been in some big games, and the big games we've seen him in, he hasn't always performed that well. He was excellent last year, but if you look at his underlying numbers, he wasn't. Like, his walk rate was up, his strikeout rate was down, his ERA was 171, his FIP was 383. Like, middle of the pack for his career, and definitely worse than his career average FIP last year, even though he had the best ERA of his career last year. So when you combine 34 years old and like I think I saw on Trade Rumors, he lost speed on his fastball, his ground ball rate went down, but he stranded over 90% of base runners. I would not want to bet very much on a guy repeating that at age 35, stranding almost everybody who gets on base. And so I think that is why he's only projected to make 2 years, $15 million. That is a low contract for a guy coming off a 171 ERA, even for a relief pitcher. But for me, I would guess that the Dodgers currently have at least 3 or 4 guys who are going to be better than Neris next year. Maybe even more than that out of the bullpen. And then, I'm still hoping that Ryan Brazier comes back. But, Evan Phillips, obviously, Bruce Gratterall, those
Hopefully
guys.
Blake Trinan.
Hopefully Blake Trinan. So, yeah, I don't know that Hector Neris, again, I don't doubt that he's going to get that payday from somebody. But when you look at, even though the Dodgers, everybody needs relievers. You always need relievers. But if we were ranking the most likely relievers to sign with the Dodgers this offseason, I'd put Neris pretty low down on the list because I do think he's going to have quite a regression next year. And I think the Dodgers aren't generally the kind of team that pays for relievers regressions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he pitched a little bit out of his mind last year. I mean, even in the postseason, a couple of times he got out. It's a combination of luck and executing to maybe what you want to do, whatever the case is. But for him, if you put it to me this way, if you put 2 years, $15 million on the table, and you have Hector Neris on one side and you have Joe Kelly on one side, I'm gonna go with Joe Kelly, even though he's probably a little bit more erratic, but he has the way better stuff. And I'm gonna count on stuff.
I'm
gonna bet on stuff when it comes down to it. And that's kind of where I'm at with Neris. Like you said, he's not going to be, if it was $7.5 million, that's not going to break the bank for the Dodgers. They've paid guys more to not pitch for the team. But if you're going to fill out the bullpen, you need, the guys that are going to pitch the later part of the innings. You're not pitching for a middle relief. And, when it comes to Neris, he would be a guy that doesn't surpass Phillips, doesn't surpass Gratterall, a healthy Blake Trinan, if he throws like he did if he can, doesn't surpass him. And then if anyone kicks down, Michael Grove, I could see kicking down to the bullpen and being a pretty solid guy. I don't know if he would be better than him. He wouldn't have better stuff than him. So yeah, it wouldn't make sense unless it's super cheap. And I don't see him being super cheap because people are probably going to overpay for, what he did last year. I mean, he does have, you look at the very least, you look at, Baseball Savant page, and there is a lot of red on there, expected batting average, 95th percentile, average exit velocity, 91st percentile, hard hit percentage, 98th percentile, chase whiff, strikeout percentage, all in the high 70s, low 80s. So it's not like he has bad peripherals, but he just doesn't strike out as much as strike out as many guys he used to, did lose some velocity. And when you're betting on a reliever that's getting older, like I said, Joe Kelly and Hector Neris are pretty similar in that comparison of getting older. I'm gonna bet with the guy that throws 100 rather than the guy that throws mid-90s.
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of interesting when we were looking at the Athletic had an article the other day of the top 100 remaining free agents, and they're ranked. And I didn't realize at first they're just ranked strictly by their WAR last year, and so Neris is actually one spot ahead of Josh Hader on this list because Neris had 2.5 WAR, Hader had 2.4. Both of those are very good numbers for relief pitchers. You generally anything over 1 is very good for a relief pitcher. So, but I was like, wait, who would? I don't think there's anybody who would take Neris over Hader. No matter what you're factoring in. Hader, I'm a little surprised. I guess Neris must have pitched more innings than Hader last year to get Neris had 68 in the third innings. I'm not sure how you get that much higher WAR. But anyway, yeah, when you're looking at relief pitchers, like it's such a fraught position in free agency anyway, because relievers are so volatile. We saw even just with the Dodgers, Yancy Almonte was awesome in 2022. And then last year he was lousy. And, the Dodgers got Evan Phillips because he was lousy for 3 different teams. And now he's great for them. So there's so much inconsistency and uncertainty there that, it would have to be a guy like Hader who has proven that he, over several years, he has consistently been awesome. That's the only kind of reliever I could see the Dodgers really making a big splash of free agents. Obviously, they're going to sign relievers as free agents, but they're not going to make big splashes for the big names. They're generally going to let the other guys pay for those guys. And most of the time you come out ahead. If you let somebody else pay the big money to the relievers and you pick up the bargain bins, you usually come out ahead.
You think there's extra value to any relievers that had a good year last year, knowing that a lot of guys did struggle with the pitch clock, like knowing that okay, he did like, or are you bound, counting on guys that did struggle last year to maybe bounce back, having maybe a full off season, knowing, okay, I know what I need to work on because of pitch count or pitch clock.
I could see both of those things. I'd be more inclined to the second one, guys making the adjustments. But I do think if there was somebody, I don't think specifically Hector Neris fits that bill, because like I do think he was mostly smoke and mirrors last year. I don't think he was actually as successful as his ERA says he was. But I think that guys who prove they can pitch, we always. I remember when we talked about when they first announced the pitch clock, we were like, how is Kenley Jansen even going to survive? And he did fine. He made adjustments. But I wonder, if Brusdar Graterol, if his awesome season had to do with him being more naturally equipped to pitch with the pitch clock. A lot of different things, because he's just kind of a get it and throw it kind of guy. But yeah, no, when I look at the list of pitchers, especially relievers, currently available, none of them jump out at me as, oh, this guy proved something last year, and he's a guy the Dodgers should go after.
True. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's teams out there considering the different sides of it. And I'm sure the Dodgers are looking on the second part of it, like you said, the bounce back, but guys more so than guys that actually performed, because they don't need too much in the like they need relievers, but they don't need, based on what's out there, they don't need much from what's out there other than guys that they can, see different things in.
Yep.
So, all right, Jeff, heading out for the weekend. You got anything else?
No, I'm excited. The winter meetings are coming up soon. We're going to start seeing signings and trades, and the hot stove is going to heat up real quick. And, I'm excited for it. It's going to be fun to see what the Dodgers do. Hopefully this is going to be a little bit different than last year for the Dodgers. Last year, the Dodgers mostly sat on the sidelines while everybody else made the big signings. I think the Dodgers are going to be big players this year.
Yeah, let's hope so. I remember last year us just at the winter meeting seeing each other, and then, oh man, $300 million for Trey Turner or $280 for Bogarts, and being surprised at that. This year now we're expecting it to be the Dodgers, and not necessarily being surprised at the money. I think we know where the money's at for the most part on a lot of these guys. So
yep,
that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Become an everydayer by listening every day. Make it easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you gotta do is search for Locked On Dodgers. Remember, 24/7 streaming channel is on YouTube, provided by Locked On Sports Today, covering the top sports stories of the day, all day long, all night long. Also, Locked On Sports Los Angeles for all the LA news that you need from sports. You can find us wherever you find podcasts, and on YouTube. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. You can find Jeff on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM either of us for questions, comments, or concerns, topics, anything of that nature. You can also send those via email at lockedondodgers@gmail.com or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you on Monday.